some opposing aspect. So, for example, in the case of Srimati Radharani's relationship with Krishna, her husband's family is very much against it. Her family, her mother, her grandmother, and like that, they're into it. They're like, yeah, go see Krishna, you know. But Abhimanyu, her husband, and his side of the family, they are very much opposed to this relationship between Krishna and Radharani. And what this does is it makes it sweeter. That when Radharani can overcome all these obstacles and actually successfully meet with Krishna, then it's wonderful. You see? Just like if it were easy to attain great success, then nobody would value it. Why is being very, very successful considered so important and so relishable? It's because there's so many barriers. First of all, there's only one person can be number one in any field. You can't have two being number one. So there's always going to be competition for this number one spot. It's never going to be just easy, just walk in the door and you got it. No, there's always going to be obstacles, difficulties, problems. And many of those problems are going to be self-created by our own lack of understanding or lack of ability or so on. So to be number one or to be successful in any field is always required to overcome different obstacles. So do we think that things are going to be any different when it comes to Krishna consciousness? No. No. And that's why there are so many apparently negative aspects to the service of Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. So that when we finally attain Krishna, then we can relish it and go, yes, yes, I finally attained Krishna after all this. If Krishna were to give himself very cheaply and easily, then everybody would say, oh yes, just Krishna. And they wouldn't appreciate, because they have not had to go through a long process of training, cultivation of sadhana, and so many other things. See? If it were just easy, if we could just say, oh, you know, Hare Krishna, and immediately Krishna would appear, then no one would value this Krishna consciousness. As it is, Krishna has set things up to where once you actually attain the qualifications of Krishna consciousness, it has to be the most valuable thing in your life, the most valuable thing in the world. You have to work much harder to become a pure devotee than you do to be a doctor or a politician or a rich person or famous or any of these other things that are supposed to be so valuable. Actually, it's very easy to attain these things compared to Krishna consciousness. Because not only do you have to learn so much and work so hard, you also have to change your character. It's not enough to just read about these things in a book or hear lectures or watch videos, but you have to actually change yourself. See, we can speak about these things all day, and sometimes we do. But unless you yourself go through the process, chanting your rounds, getting up early in the morning, being pure, eating a vegetarian diet, so many other things, and we've been over this 1,000 times, then you cannot actually attain this. For example, we were just talking this morning about some of the people in India who style themselves as devotees, but actually they're impersonalists, and they think that they are one with God, that they're the same as God. There's no difference. So what kind of devotion is this? I mean, can someone explain to me how it's possible to keep these two ideas in the mind at the same time? That I'm actually one with God, and at the same time I love God. But wait a minute, how can you love God unless you're different from God? And if we were God, Because God is eternal and changeless, if we were God, we'd already be God. The fact that we are different from God now means that we're always going to be different from God, because we cannot change our ontological status. Okay? Now, the fact is, we do have a lot in common with God, you know. He has consciousness, we have consciousness. He has personality, we have personality. He has energy, we have energy. He has desires, we have desires. Ideas and activities and so many other things. But fundamentally, we are different individuals, and Kṛṣṇa is a different individual. If that's not true, if there's some deeper level where everything is one, then we're not going to reach it through bhakti, because bhakti is going to accentuate the differences between ourselves and God. You see, so all these things are completely contradictory. We even see that the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, are building temples, Kṛṣṇa temples, and they're chanting Kṛṣṇa's name, and they're doing all these things, and yet they want to say that, no, actually we're one with Kṛṣṇa. There's no difference between me and Kṛṣṇa. Okay? Well, fine. Just create me, you know, a small diamond out of thin air. If you're Kṛṣṇa, then, you know, show that you can create something. Show that you can make something out of nothing, because that's what God does. He simply wants to create the material world, and then so many material universes emanate from his body, and like that. He can do whatever he likes. His potency is unstoppable. But we find that we have so many limitations, and that we can't really do so many things that we would like to do. And these are just small things. So how is it possible that we're identical with God? This is a ridiculous idea. And yet somehow or other, many people believe in it. Why? Because it's very, very flattering to the self-ego, the false ego. Oh yes, actually I am God. Just a ridiculous idea. It's the acme of vanity to believe that you're God. So actually this whole idea, this whole philosophy of monism or Mayavadi philosophy is against God. It's against religion. It's against self-realization. And maybe because of this, a person is able to attain some kind of temporary detachment, or, you know, in extreme examples, they're able to merge into the Brahman energy of the Lord. But then that's the end of them. That's spiritual suicide. They never come back from that. Their individuality is lost. So that also means their consciousness is lost. They don't anymore, they've basically ceased to exist. This is a horrible thing. Yes, then there's no more suffering, but there's also no more enjoyment, no more consciousness, no more knowledge, no more activity, no more love. Nothing. This is very tragic. So in Kali Yuga, this belief is very common, that one can become one with God. But Lord Chaitanya preached so much against it. And part of this preaching is this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that describes all these different states of love of God, and how the devotee, going through different phases of relationship with Kṛṣṇa, can feel all these different emotions. So that's why it's very important to know these things. Here's another one called fatigue. One feels fatigue after walking a long distance, after dancing, and after sexual activity. In this kind of fatigue, there is dizziness, perspiration, inactivity of the limbs, yawning, and heavy breathing. One day, Yashoda was chasing Kṛṣṇa in the yard after he had offended her. After a while, Yashoda became very fatigued, and therefore she was perspiring and her bunched hair became loosened. This is an instance of becoming fatigued because of too much work. Sometimes all the cowherd boys of Kṛṣṇa, along with Balaram, danced together in some ceremony. At these times, the garlands on their necks would move, and the boys would begin to perspire. Their whole bodies became wet from their ecstatic dancing. This is an instance of fatigue caused by dancing. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 10th canto, 33rd chapter, verse 20, it is said that after enjoying love affairs with Kṛṣṇa by dancing, embracing, and kissing, the gopis would sometimes become very tired.